killing everyone on board. He'd never even gotten the chance to bring Karen to Fairbanks and introduce the woman he'd loved to his family. "Walker certainly does seem a lot happier these days, thanks to our cousin," Cash said, intruding into Garth's thoughts. Garth nodded as he studied his cards. Yes, Walker had become the outlaw's cousin-in-law after marrying Bailey Westmoreland. Bailey was a cousin they hadn't known existed until it was proven that the Westmorelands and the outlaws were related. The physical resemblance between the two families could not be disputed, although for some reason their father still would not accept the fact that the outlaws and Westmorelands were kin. However, like Garth and his siblings had told Bart, it didn't matter whether or not he accepted the kinship. It was the truth. The Westmoreland extended family spread from Georgia and Texas to Montana, Colorado, and California. After growing up with no other relatives, it was fun joining the Westmorelands whenever they had get-togethers or family events, like the annual Westmoreland Charity Ball in Denver. Garth loved it whenever the Westmorelands and the outlaws got together. Hours later, after the poker game ended with Cash winning all their money, everyone retired to bed except for Garth and Jess. Although all 6 outlaw offspring owned homes in Fairbanks, every once in a while, to appease the old man, they would stay under his roof at the outlaw estates. Some people found it amazing that the 6 outlaw siblings were as close as they were, considering each one of them had a different mother. Unfortunately, some of those women had turned out to be gold diggers. When the divorces became final, Bart's attorneys made sure he was given full custody of his children. Garth was the oldest. His mother had been Bart's first wife and had come from a wealthy family. She had married Bart against her parents' wishes, and when her family finally got to her, she had asked Bart for a divorce. He told her he would give her one, but she couldn't take his child. In the end, she'd left without Garth. She'd remarried a couple years later, to the man her parents had chosen. After marrying her second husband, Juanita pretty much forgot Garth existed. However, his maternal grandparents had left him a pretty hefty trust fund when they died 20 or so years ago. Jessup, or Jess, as he preferred to be called, was 36 and the second oldest, and had always wanted a career in politics. Jess's mother, Joyce, had been the first gold digger, and Bart had ended his marriage to Joyce before their first anniversary rolled around. Bart had taken her to court for custody of Jess. Cashin, who was usually called Cash, was 34 and the third-born son. Cash's mother, Ellen, had been a decent woman and Bart's third wife. In a way, she'd been too decent for Bart. She was soft-spoken and had tried bringing out the good in Bart. When she'd realized such a thing wasn't possible, she'd left. Even with Bart's threats, Ellen had called Bart's bluff and tried to take Cash with her. In the end, she'd lost the custody fight after finding out Bart had friends in high places. Sloan was 32. His mother, Barbie, had been another one who'd picked Bart for his money. Although the marriage had lasted less than 6 months, that was long enough for Sloan to be conceived. Barbie'd had no problem leaving Sloan behind, for the right amount, when she split. She hadn't been seen or heard from again. Maverick, at 29, was the youngest outlaw son, and the most womanizing. Granted, all of them enjoyed their share of the opposite sex from time to time, but Maverick had his share and then some. His mother had been an exploiter too. Rosalind was the one who'd been caught having an affair right under Bart's nose. However, there hadn't been any question that Maverick was Bart's kid, since he favored the old man more than any of them, right down to the cleft in his chin. Last, but certainly not least, was Bart's only daughter, definitely his pride and joy, 25-year-old Charm. To this day, Charm's mother, Claudia, was the only woman Bart had ever loved, and the one he couldn't handle. And she'd been the only one Bart hadn't married, but not for lack of trying. Claudia had refused to accept Bart's marriage proposals, all 5 of them. The most recent was 4 years ago, when Charm had turned 21.